Sorry if you guys hear a little background noise. I hope that's okay. Is it okay, or is it too bad? It's fine. Okay, good. So I don't have a lot today. Those of you who have seen, I have a couple of topics. So one is you have seen that Pfizer going to be increasing price of vaccine about 5 times, from somewhere around $30 to somewhere between 130 to 180 per each shot. So in some way, I kind of figured I'll be a little ahead of the game and explain this because everybody's going to be shocked and worried. This was probably expected because the demand on vaccines had dramatically decreased in the last few months, and also there is an expectation that sooner or later the kind of in mass purchasing of vaccines by the government is going to stop. And when that does, the insurances will start paying for the vaccines. And so Pfizer, and I'm sure Moderna and others will follow the suit. They're trying to price the vaccine to make it more sustainable for them and figure out the long-term insurance reimbursement, because if they're going to set the price at 140 or 150, doesn't mean that they're going to get 150, they may get 100 or whatnot. So don't be too shocked over it. I don't think that that's going to happen overnight, and I think the government has purchased a large or committed for purchase of large batches at a set price, which is not that price I just said. It's at much lower price. So I think at least until January, I don't expect anything to change at all on our end in US, because the emergency ruling has been, as you have heard, that's another topic. They've been now extended until end of January 2023, which means that government will cover all the testing and all the vaccines, at least until that point. What will happen after, I guess we'll have to see. Our numbers are dropping in the US, so it's still getting better overall. However, of course, you hear everybody talking about new variants and potentially increased risk for winter spike. I think I don't have anything updated, no updates there. The new variants, I don't have any updates there either. There are a couple of really concerning variants that have been picked up in different parts of the world. It's too early for me to, XBB, exactly. It's too early, I think, to discuss them. I'm going to be carefully tracking the information on them, and we'll try to give you an update in upcoming weeks. But beyond that, I don't really think I have anything to add to that. So that's all of my updates. So let's do Q&A, okay? So you know the rules. Put the questions in the chat, and I'll address them. Wow, quiet group today. No questions? That's surprising. Well, okay, good. First question. I have a question for everybody. You guys, we've done this before, but are there specific topics you want us to cover? So if anybody have any idea, put them in the chat.
Yeah, because like that pelvic floor wellness talk we just had, that was because someone had suggested it. So give us your ideas.
So let me answer this question. So if we have a mild case of COVID, do we have to wait at least 3 months before getting a booster? I would say not just yes. In my opinion, I would wait even longer. I'd wait probably at least 6 months. I'm not really that concerned in terms of, and I'm more concerned about giving way too many frequent boosters. I talked about this many times. So I don't think that you have to have a booster if you were just mildly ill. In fact, if you have any COVID, it doesn't matter. If things change in the future because we get new variants or we get some different strains, we will keep talking about it. But as of now, I don't see any reason to tell you to get a vaccine within a 6 months period after. Now, there are some differences in opinions, and if your physician told you something else, like let's get the booster soon because you're very immune compromised, that's different. I'm talking about the general statement for everybody who doesn't have any particular severe immune deficiencies. And how you define that is a little all over the place. So I would say if you're still concerned, then we probably should discuss your case individually, or you should talk to your doctor. That's a good question, Anna Maria. So there's no good answer to that question because the definition of geriatrics is 65 plus. But what we know is that most of the older patients will not enter geriatric practice until way, way, way later for one specific reason. There is about tenfold, so about 90% of geriatricians are not available because it's the least interesting specialty for internal medicine and family medicine doctors to go into. So there's a massive shortage, and most of the geriatricians end up taking care of people who are over 80 and have multiple medical problems. So they kind of taking care of absolutely most frail and oldest, which actually is not a good thing. It would be way better if we would have enough geriatricians to start taking care of older people around the age of 70. That's my personal opinion. So that's a really good question, though. So, but anyway, so who wants to hear us or see presented what? Don't be shy. Drop things in the chat or unmute and speak up. All right, I think everybody's sleeping today. That's good enough. It's getting chilly. The winter is coming. Everybody's slowing down. Totally expected. Okay, is distance important? Initially, it was masking, distancing. Now people may mask. So yeah, that's a very good point. The distance is one of the ways to decrease risk of exposure. Traditionally we heard 10 feet. I think in actual, if you're in a building, 10 feet is not going to cut it, especially like I'm in a huge, the ceiling is high and there's a lot of windows. Some of them are open, so it's probably better. And there are only like 10 people, so much smaller audience than I expected. So for that, I felt okay without being in a mask. Then I was about 20 feet away from them. But if you're outside, I don't think the distance matters much because, again, I think the risk is pretty small. But we talked about this a lot. Okay, so menopause and things around menopause. Okay, great. That we will take into consideration. Janet, pay attention. I will pay attention too. Sheila has a question. I see the hand raised. Sheila, go ahead.
I want to say it out loud. I don't want to write it. I would like something done on feet.
On feet. Can you?
Now, I was going to email Janet to give her more information, but I think feet, what I found is as I age, my feet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. He muted himself so you couldn't hear him talking to the person.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So anyway, what I found is like my feet, my toes, and all this stuff is seemingly getting more stiff. So, I don't know if I should soak, even though I do soak. I don't have any expert telling me. But what I also found interesting that I thought could be for the mindful class after, the expert after. When my mom passed many years ago, I went to yoga class for grief. And the lady did toga. She called it toga, which she did some manipulating kind of things with the hands.
I love that
yoga type thing. She called it toga. So I've been kind of now I do it a lot, but I've been periodically doing this toga, and it really has helped a lot. So I think that I would like to see more, to hear somebody talk about feet and do the massaging or the toga, whatever they want to call it. And that's something that we can do right away once we leave the session. That's all.
Well, I say, Sheila, I say if you have practitioner you like, tell us about this person and we'll bring that person in. And we'll,
I'll try to find her. The place I was taking the class, which was Willow Street Yoga. Mm-hmm. She's no longer a person there. She was very young. I think she was like maybe about 20, 21, and she left. But if I can find her name or anything, but I'm thinking anybody that can do massage or
All right.
yoga
Well,
practice.
we'll bring somebody in. That's
I'm
good.
thinking some of the people you've used before may be able to do that too.
Okay.
All
All right.
right.
So we got that. We got menopause, long COVID, definitely. We already did this, but we'll do more. Ashley, I'm sure. We actually, because the group has been so successful, we definitely want to give you a heads up on that. And then vagus nerve, yes, that's a great topic. So I think with that, hi.
Downstairs.
Yeah, okay. So I gotta go. Mark is up next. I'm gonna turn off the video because I have to move. They're gonna have to move me here.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Mark Webster. I'm Stay Well Man, and I'm coming to you from Christchurch, New Zealand, and it is currently 7:17 a.m. Saturday morning here. So I'm grateful to be with you all. And as Janet said, I'm a community pharmacist by background. I've been a pharmacist for a long time, and for the last sort of 15 years been working in the integrative space, although many of my colleagues, we've been having a discussion about who gets to claim that they practice integrative medicine or not, and we feel that it should be someone that's actually got a degree in integrative medicine or some sort of qualification. And unfortunately, at the moment, it's not a protected term. But I run Stay Well Clinic. I have Stay Well Pharmacy, and I'm Stay Well Man, and all of those begin with the letter S. And so I was thinking about how I could give a discussion on some topics that all begin with the letter S. And you may like to write these down. I've got a list. I think there's about 15 odd words here. And I'm hoping also that this complements nicely with the rest of our discussions for today. The number one word for S at the top of my list is sleep, otherwise known as vitamin S. There's vitamin S and vitamin W. Vitamin W, of course, is water, but vitamin S is just paramount. And of course, I'm thankful that daylight saving ended here so that I can get up at 6 a.m. instead of 5 a.m. to be with you guys. You know, and when we're sleeping, it's also about sleep hygiene, preparing for bed, using blackout curtains. There are only two things we do in bed. One, we don't discuss in front of our parents, and the other one is sleep. And if we are watching movies or reading a book or eating or anything else in bed, the subconscious can get very confused about that. And we need to be doing those other activities out of bed. We need to be mindful of blue light. And in fact, even just involving ourselves in stimulating activities, we need to be preparing for bed and getting to bed at a decent time. And then also not a length of sleep, but it's the quality of sleep. And I know many people are using things like magnesium to assist with their sleep. It has sedative qualities. Some people are using melatonin. The ones that we shouldn't be using, obviously, are stimulants. So we shouldn't be really having coffee in the evening. And we definitely shouldn't be using alcohol as a hypnotic or try to get us to sleep. It just does not give us a good quality sleep. But sleep is the number one thing on my list. And of course, after you've had a good sleep and you wake in the morning, you stretch. And if you've ever seen a baby wake from a slumber, the first thing they do, they stretch. Or a cat. The cat will wake and stretch out. And stretching has so many wonderful qualities. There's some really interesting hormones that are secreted by the muscle cells, the myokines, and it can really prepare us for the day. And so sleep and stretch have a lovely synergy. My third word is silence, because too many of us actually have too much noise. If we're sitting in traffic or we're at our job and then we come home and we'll have we'll have the noise of the house, or we'll have a podcast going on, or we'll have something. And sometimes we just need to switch off everything and just have a few minutes of silence. And that can be really uncomfortable for most people because we're not used to it. But sometimes doing nothing except sitting there and listening to our own breath can just be wonderfully therapeutic. And along with that, my fourth word is solitude. Now, I'm not talking about loneliness. I'm talking about solitude. So I'm talking about making that space for yourself. And of course, that will help you achieve silence, perhaps. And a really wonderful method I've used for that is to make the self-appointment. So you get your diary and you open it to a day and time that is suitable, that's not going to conflict with other things. And in my case, I make appointment with Mark. So that when someone says to me, hey, what are you doing on Saturday? And I say, well, I have an appointment between 2 and 3 or between 2 and 2:30. And that's my time. But I don't say that. I just say I have an appointment between 2 and 2:30. I can see you at 3 or I can see you at 1. No one will ever ask you what the appointment is for, perhaps not even your spouse or partner. And so it's a really useful way of creating a space for yourself. But if you say, oh, that's me time, I have me time between 1 and 1:30, people won't respect that. But if you talk about an appointment, but you have to write it in your diary, because if you don't, it's going to come across as some sort of flippant remark or you're trying to be deceptive. So you write it in your diary every week, appointment with yourself, so that you can then feel authentic when someone asks when they can see you. And with that, I've just written stop. And there are so many things that you can apply that to. You know, you can stop a bad habit. You can stop a detrimental thought. You can stop a detrimental activity. And sometimes stopping those things can be difficult because they are based in routine. They're based in a habitual activity. It might be stop eating some food that's really killing you. You know, maybe it's stop eating sugar. Maybe it's but it can also be stop seeing individuals that suck the energy out of you. And we know who they are. Sometimes they're family members, and that makes it difficult. So perhaps we just have to limit it, but that didn't rhyme with S. So start with S. So stop doing those things. And while we're having our solitude time, we can spend that time in self-reflection and reflecting on both the positives and the negatives. And when we find those negatives, we need to practice my next S word, which is self-forgiveness, because we aren't as amazing as we hoped we would be yesterday, but actually we are more amazing than we realize that we are. And we have to acknowledge that sometimes there are things that we chose to do on the spur of the moment that later we reflected and thought, no, that wasn't the right thing. But in self-reflection also, then we can find the self-forgiveness. And then the process on from that is to practice self-love. And I don't, you know, in America, self-love is actually a lot easier to do. You know, you're able to, if I want to use the word, brag on yourself. In New Zealand here, this is very difficult. We actually have a tall poppy syndrome in this country, and where humility is the quality that is blessed the most here. That's what you get the most credence for. But unfortunately, sometimes we need to acknowledge what we are good at. And there is a good colleague of mine who is starting a movement here in New Zealand, and it's about acknowledging self-love and self-value. And if you had the opportunity, because I mean, America, you've got the coasts. So I've written on here sand, surf, and sun. And I'm not necessarily talking about all three of those, because sometimes you don't get the opportunity. Perhaps you could create a sandbox in your backyard, go down to the hardware store and get a sack of sand and create a little box in the backyard. Just have to make sure the cats don't use it as a toilet. But be able to stand on some sand in your bare feet and let the rays of the sun shine on your face and feel the warmth and breathe in the air and close your eyes. And again, have that moment of silence or that moment of solitude, of self-reflection, and feel the sand on your feet. Sure, you could do it on grass, but grass doesn't begin with S. So I've chosen sand. And my next word is satiety. You know, sometimes you need to realize that enough is enough. And I'm not necessarily, talking about food. I'm talking about sometimes the qualifications you have are enough. The energy that you give to others is enough. The time that you spend on a particular activity is enough. You should feel satiated, and you should recognize when satiety comes to you so that you don't overextend, you don't overindulge, you don't overeat. And likewise, along with satiety is sobriety. And again, that's often associated with alcohol, but sobriety can be other negative activities in your life. Choosing when you limit or exclude particular activities because they're just negative. We've also, in the last 2 years, I've discovered that sometimes you need to recognize when you have satiety of information, or you need to practice sobriety and stop listening to particular information streams or your next door neighbor or a family member, because it's not a positive influence in your life now. And structure, and this is something that I go back to again and again. Structure, we get up some mornings and life happens while we were making other plans. But if we have some structure, and a structure that I use often and share with my clients is to make 4 lists. First, you make a master list of everything that's on your plate. And that's going to help you too with your sleep, because then you won't get that busy brain trying to work out what you need to do when you go to sleep. You've got all these memories and thoughts going through your mind. Write them all down on a big long list. So then when you put your head on the pillow and you think about something, oh no, that's on the list. That's on the list. That's on the list. Tick them off. Eventually there's nothing in your head anymore and you can go off to sleep. But the structure that I'll often use after you created your master list is you create 4 different lists. You have the urgent and important, the non-urgent and important, the urgent but non-important, and the non-urgent and the non-important. So something that's urgent and important is that the electricity bill needs to be paid next Friday or they'll cut your power off. That's urgent and important. But perhaps the base of my spare room, it's full of some of my clinic material. I need to go through that. That's important, but that's not urgent. Nobody dies if I do that this week or next week. And then there are some items that need to be done this week or next week. They're on your urgent and important. And the ones that are important but not urgent, some of those, there'll be something happening next month. So obviously, when you get to next month and you haven't achieved it, then it shifts into your urgent and important list. But you don't get to get distracted by the non-urgent important or the non-important urgent tasks, which we often will get distracted. You focus on the urgent and important items, and you do those, and you make sure you do 2 or 3 of those a day. And if you had that structure, then the chaos that is your life then becomes a lot easier to manage. And structure is vital. And the other thing, it allows you to take some of those from those other 3 lists and give those to other people to do, because you don't have to be able to do everything yourself. Sometimes delegation is a far more important quality to have. And sanctuary is my next S word. And for me, sanctuary is my karate dojo. You'll notice here I have the karate symbol. I practice a style of karate called Kyokushin, which is a full contact knockdown, knockout style. And if you go onto Google and type the strongest karate, you'll find that Kyokushin comes up. And I've been doing that for 40 years. And that keeps me level. I often say to people that as a community pharmacist during the day, at night, I take people apart. And in the day, I put them back together. So I practice my karate in the evening and pharmacy in the daytime. But sanctuary might be your church. It might be your backyard. It might be your room. It might be a special place. For me, it's my karate dojo. I do go to church, but there is just something very special for me because my karate dojo is, when you walk through the door, it doesn't matter who you are, what your qualification is, who your parents are, what school you went to, what income you have, what status you have in life. It doesn't matter. We all walk through the door as a white belt and we find our place in that community. And so for me, that is my sanctuary. And it is so important that you identify your sanctuary and that you visit that sanctuary. Maybe you do that during your self-appointment that we talked about earlier. Maybe that's what you do. Spend that half hour, that 1 hour, the time that you have allotted in your sanctuary where no one can harm you, no one can be trying to influence you. That is just your time to just give to yourself and to be present. And then there's skin to skin. And, you know, Misha was talking about distancing before. And my goodness, the last 2 years with masking and distancing and all these things, we've lost contact. And, you know, the ability to hold someone's hand, the ability to hug someone and feel your cheek against their cheek, those connections are so vital to our being. And we know this from experimentations that have been done in years past where they've looked at, you know, not cuddling children and the effect that that's had further down the line. And, you know, there's something quite magical about holding hands. I saw an elderly couple, and I'm sure you may have seen this too. Doesn't it just bring you joy to see two elderly people walking down the street hand in hand? Isn't that amazing? And, you know, being able to share a shoulder rub, a massage, touch, maybe a hand rub. And we were talking about feet just before, you know, isn't it wonderful to have a foot massage or just feel someone close and have their hand touching yours or their hand on your face? It's an amazing experience and something that no drug in a bottle is going to ever mimic in any way. And so important to connect. And I have 2 words left, and they both need to be almost, you'll find that if you do one, you'll do the other. Sing. There was a speech that was then turned into music some time ago, and it's called the Sunscreen Song, and it's in brackets, everyone's free to wear the sunscreen song. And it was supposedly a speech, but it was actually an article written, I believe, in one of the American newspapers, and it was about all the things you should be doing. And they talk about singing in there. You probably also heard about sing like no one is listening and dance like no one is watching. But when you sing, music is beautiful. There is something amazing about song and about notes. And, you know, even if you can't sing, it doesn't matter. I have a family member who he's tone deaf, but he sings with joy and it really brings him pleasure. And so I turn the volume of the song up just a little bit and let him do his thing, because it brings him joy and it brings me joy to see him in that joyous moment. And when we sing, we smile. And the amazing thing about smiling is it's infectious. And if you find that you're smiling, other people start to smile. If you walk down the street and you see somebody with a grumpy face and you smile, many times they will smile back. Sometimes it's just because of a social uncomfortableness and they don't know what else to do. But sometimes it's just you smile, so they smile, and it's an infectious thing. And I wrote a note on my Facebook page so long ago now that may the only infectious thing you catch tomorrow is a smile. And so I encourage you to smile. I encourage you to stretch, to find silence and solitude when needed, to practice self-reflection and self-forgiveness, and most importantly, self-love. to understand when you need to practice sobriety and satiety, to find structure through the nonsense that your day can be, to identify your sanctuary, to find someone very special that you can connect with skin to skin, to sing and to smile and have a really good sleep and a really good stretch in the morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. As
Thank
always, wonderful hearing your perspective and for you to share knowledge with us. And I know I don't call on you enough, but that's because I always feel guilty bothering you because I know how busy you are.
It's all good. It's all good. Anytime. Oh, the 4 lists? Sure. Urgent and important. And then you just put a non in front of one of those. So non-urgent and important, or urgent and non-important, and then non-important and non-urgent. And that last one, you throw in the trash. Because nobody dies if any of that does happen or not.
And well, thank you so much, Mark. I really enjoyed that talk too. And shall I say it was splendid. And I think that there are several of those S words that might come into play in our little sample of nature therapy that I'm gonna guide folks through here. So we shall see. So my name's Ilana Rubin, and my practice is called Kindred Nature. I'm a certified guide for forest bathing and nature therapy. And I recognize a lot of faces here, so I'm really glad to be back again. And I know you've also had a couple of other guides guiding this type of practice. So this might be a bit familiar, but it's still very worthwhile whether you do it just once or many times. So this practice of nature therapy or forest bathing is a way for us to slow down, tune into our senses, and connect with ourselves, with the nature that's in each of us and around us, and connecting with other people and other beings as well. And as Janet mentioned in the very beginning, I do live and I'm based out of Northern Virginia, and I can offer this around Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. and in Maryland. So if that is the region that you are in, then please reach out to me if you're interested in having a fuller experience of this, because typically it can be from about an hour to 3 hours. So we won't be having the full experience, but just a little bit of a sample today. So with that, the way that I'll be doing this is sharing a bit of invitation. So that means that everything I'm saying is just an invitation. There's no requirement. It's up to you what feels comfortable and right for you to engage in. If I'm mentioning something about a certain sense, like sight or smell, that doesn't feel like what you either want to or are able to engage with today, then just shift to something else that works for you. And so I'd just like to invite anyone who'd like to add in the chat here, just so we can connect with each other a little bit, your name, where you're joining from today, and anything you're noticing about the season. If you're around the region where I am, for me, it's fall or autumn. If you're in New Zealand or somewhere else, then maybe you're in a different season. So adding your name, where you are, and something about the season in the chat if you like. And I'll just put mine in here. And then while other folks are adding in there, I'm gonna just show a little bit of the leaves that I gathered from the backyard that I'm fortunate to have access to here to bring a little bit of fall in while people are adding in there. So again, just name, where you are, something you're noticing about the season, wherever you are, or if you're not noticing about it right now, maybe a memory any little bits just for us to share here. And maybe taking a moment to look in the chat and see what other folks are sharing with us here. I see Monica, welcome. Crunchy Leaves, Mark, Spring, Blossom and Growth, welcome. Rebecca, Fall Foliage, Cooler Weather, Scarves, welcome. Anna Maria, Transformation, welcome. Curry, Fall is coming but warm today, welcome. Denise, Still Warm, welcome. Patricia, Cooler Weather, Fire in the Fireplace, welcome. And Judy, Beautiful Trees Changing in Color, welcome. All right, and welcome to everyone else who didn't get to share in the chat, but you know, you are just as welcome and holding that space for you here. So now I'm going to move into our first invitation, and I will be guiding you through this using my voice. So you can feel free to move wherever is comfortable for you, as long as you can still hear me. You can have your video on or off, whatever is comfortable for you. And this invitation is called Pleasures of Presence. So first, just arrive in this moment, in this place where you are now. Perhaps looking around in all different directions and noticing what colors and shapes are here with you. And whenever you are ready, if it feels comfortable for you, you may like to either close your eyes or soften your gaze. And then just take a few breaths at your own pace, noticing what it's like to be breathing now. Next, shifting your attention to sound. I wonder what you hear in the place where you are, or if perhaps there is silence. Next, shifting your attention to your sense of smell, or perhaps sensations around your nose. What does this place and this air where you are have to offer? Sometimes folks like to play around with sniffing or breathing through their nose as if they're another kind of animal. See what that's like. And now shifting to your mouth. You might either notice taste or other sensations on your lips or your tongue. Or maybe what it's like just to take a breath in through your mouth. And now bringing attention to your skin and your sense of touch. Wonder what you're feeling. Perhaps exploring textures that you've brought with you, hair, clothing, your own skin. Or maybe of the feeling of the air where you are, or of anything else near you. Now, awakening your imagination. Perhaps imagining that what it might be like if you were a plant, maybe a tree. What might it feel like to grow roots into this earth, or to grow a trunk or branches up above into the air? I wonder what other beings you might meet or get to know if you were this other kind of being, a tree or something else. And now coming back into our human bodies, gently, if it works and is comfortable for you, you might like to either stand up, or you can stay however you are if you are not wanting to stand or able to at this time. And just slowly turn or just try shifting your body in different directions and stop whenever it feels right for you. And now noticing what it's like to be in the position, in the place, in the direction that your body is now. What does this feel like? And now, while you are, however you are, just listening into your body. If there's anything that your body is asking of you to be more comfortable, to feel a little better, you can go ahead and see if you can give something to yourself for that. So just support and listen to yourself in this moment. Noticing if there's anything that feels good or has given you any bit of enjoyment, either now or recently, inviting that to linger and stay with you. Now bring your attention to your sense of sight. I invite you to try this out first, either with your eyes still closed or your gaze softened. Noticing if there's any light or anything else that you can see a little bit, even with your eyes closed or your gaze softened. Maybe it's the play of light or shadow from whatever space you're in. Maybe it's something else. Or maybe nothing. And in a moment, but not just yet, you can slowly open your eyes or refocus your gaze. And when you do, you might imagine that all that you're seeing is part of a great painting that somebody has shared with you. So whenever you're ready, slowly open your eyes or refocus your gaze. And allow your attention, sight to wander. Notice whether maybe there's anything moving, any motion. Perhaps that's motion inside of your own body. Or maybe in the space close by around you. Any motion or perhaps stillness that you notice with your awakened senses. And then any movement farther beyond the space or the room where you are that you can notice with your senses. Or again, perhaps stillness. Now I'll shift into another small invitation. And that is tree mirrors. So for tree mirrors, I invite you all to play around with being a mirror to a tree. And this could be a tree that you can see from where you are, or maybe one you saw earlier today or another day. Maybe it's the tree that you're imagining in your own mind. And I'll give us all just 2 minutes. I'll turn off my video, but we'll still be here. So just take 2 minutes I'll call us back at the end of the 2 minutes to play around with mirroring that tree. That could be with your body or with some other way of being. Maybe it's an opportunity to stretch or for solitude or something else. So go ahead wherever you are and explore being a tree mirror for 2 minutes. And now we will come back together again. Come back from our tree mirroring and just take a few breaths at your own pace as we're gathering once again. And just want to invite anyone who would like to share in the chat. What are you noticing? What are you noticing? And as folks are sharing in the chat, what are you noticing? I will just share a little bit more. So I've prepared something here. It's a tea. And perhaps if you have water or anything to drink near you, it might be a good time to have a little of that, or maybe later on when it works for you. But what I've got here, I put in this glass so you can kind of see it's a little bit cloudy. It has a little bit of yellowish brownish to it. Also, I made this with parts of spice bush berries. This is a shrub that grows native to this region. And there are many different parts of it that can be used for either medicinal or health purposes. It has a history of being used to help with a variety of things like colds and coughs. Sometimes the twigs or the leaves or the berries can be used. Some folks use the berries as a substitute for allspice. And in this case, I just gathered a few, not very many, because the other critters around here enjoy the berries too. And actually, let me show a little picture so y'all actually know a little bit of what I'm talking about here. In case you ever see this, I don't advise just picking it unless you go with an expert or unless you've really studied it, because there are other things that are shrubs with red berries that are not like this. So this one's really delightful. It has a spicy and fruitiness to it. I made scones with like the berry parts, the fleshy red part on the outside, and then I kept the insides, which looks kind of like a black peppercorn, ground it up, and I've made this tea. And I'm just sharing this to share with you all that this is another way that we can bring in nature through our senses, remembering and thinking about the sources of the different things that we eat and drink, and then we can take that in with our tastes and all the nutrition. So I'm going to take a sip. If anyone else wants to share anything that you're noticing in the chat, you're welcome.
Ilana, that reminds me that there's a tree called the redbud tree. And I don't know if a lot of people know, but you can actually eat the blossoms.
Yeah, that's right. And red buds are like, when they're blooming, I feel like a real sign of spring coming with all that, that pink.
So we have a while to go for that.
Yeah.
But in the spring, we'll remind you all that you can taste the redbud.
That's right. Yeah, so that's the spice bush. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for exploring this. I see peace and relaxation, feeling very chilled, lovely, and thank you. Thank you all. And again, my name is Ilana Rubin. I practice as Kindred Nature. Here's my website, and you can find ways to email me or connect with me on there if you would ever like to experience a fuller experience of this, whether it's remotely guided but longer, or a full in-person experience where most likely we would be outdoors. But you can find nature wherever you are too, if you just notice and look. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ilana. So Misha.
Ah. Am I frozen?
No.
No. Do we have questions?
Oh, that's Al. Sorry.
We're out of the time. So well, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ilana. I'm sure we'll have you back sooner or later. Mark, thanks for all your dedication. I don't know how you do this. How you get up 5, 6 a.m. I just.
Lucid.
Thank you for all of that. And have a one. Sounds like this weekend is going to be wonderful too here in our neck of the woods, and we're going to have wonderful weather. I hope everybody can get out and practice what Ilana was teaching to us in a real life outside in the nature. I think that's really valuable. And what do we have next week?
Next week we have you and Yale Flersberg. So it's going to be all CIM all the time. But in the upcoming weeks, on November 4th, we're bringing back Dr. Beer to talk about oral health, and Victoria Karacheva from GW is going to talk about the vagus nerve. Hey, Al.
That'll be addressed. So should I do long COVID next week?
Yeah, I think so.
Because Yael is doing mindfulness, right? And I'm doing the wellness talk. All right, everybody. We'll do long COVID next week. I'll see if Ashley can co-join me so that we can team tag. I think that would be valuable. I can give you an update on the group. I can walk you through sort of some of the other things. Can also talk to you about some of the things that are going on in Europe, which is way more advanced. Things like plasmapheresis and some of the anticoagulation methods and other things. Stay safe, stay warm, but do get some cold. And maybe I'll talk about the hypothermia again next time as well as part of the long COVID treatment.
Take care, everyone.
Peace and hugs. Thanks, Ilana. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Jen.
Bye.
Thank you.